My name is Emma Jean, and I learned early on that things aren't always what they seem. Growing up, I lived in a small apartment above my parents' grocery store. They worked hard every day, saving every penny. What no one knew was that my parents secretly invested in successful tech startups. They taught me that true wealth doesn't need to show off. Remember, Emma, my dad used to say, money talks, but wealth whispers. I took those words to heart. While working part-time at the store, I studied finance and economics, and by the time I was 25, I had my MBA. Quietly, I built my own investment portfolio worth millions, but I kept it private, preferring people to underestimate me. That's how I met Michael. It was a rainy Tuesday at my favorite coffee shop, where I often worked on my laptop managing investments, blending in as just another young professional. Michael rushed in, soaked from the rain, and realized he'd forgotten his wallet just as the card reader stopped working. "I've got it," I said, stepping forward to pay. "Oh no, I can't let you do that," he protested. "Consider it karma," I replied with a smile. "Maybe you'll return the favor someday." That favor came as a dinner invitation the following week. Michael was charming, genuine, and humble. He worked as a middle manager at Preston Financial, a big investment firm in the city. "It's not the most exciting job," he admitted over dinner, "but it's stable." I liked that he wasn't trying to impress me with big talk. "Stability is underrated," I replied, thinking about my carefully managed investments. What I didn't tell him was that I already owned a large number of shares in Preston Financial. I'd been studying the company for months, noticing its potential but also its outdated management practices. As we spent more time together, our relationship grew naturally. Michael was kind, honest, and treated everyone with respect, no matter who they were, from the CEO to the janitor. After a year of dating, Michael proposed with his grandmother's ring. "It's not much," he said nervously, "but it's been in the family for generations." "It's perfect," I assured him, and I meant it. The value wasn't in the small diamond, but in its history of love. Then I met his family, and everything changed. Michael's sister, Catherine, worked as a senior analyst at Preston Financial. She had climbed the ranks quickly, thanks to office politics and family connections. From the first dinner I attended, it was clear she didn't think much of me. "So what do you do?" she asked, holding her wine glass in her perfectly manicured fingers. "I'm a secretary at Rivera Corp," I replied, sticking to my cover job. I did work there part-time to stay familiar with the finance world's day-to-day operations. "Oh," Catherine said, sharing a glance with their mother, Eleanor. "How quaint." Michael's always had a soft spot for charity cases. Michael shifted uncomfortably but said nothing. His silence would become a pattern. After we got married, Catherine's disdain became more obvious. She worked in the same office as Michael, and her comments became sharper. At the Christmas party, she said loudly, "You know, Sandra from accounting is single now. She's a junior partner, much more suitable for Michael." I stayed calm, but Michael's lack of defense hurt. "I just want to keep the peace," he explained later. What they didn't know was that I had been quietly increasing my investment in Preston Financial. The company needed modernization, and I was positioning myself to make that happen. My part-time secretary job gave me the perfect cover to observe without anyone suspecting my real intentions. Then came the big news. Preston Financial was merging with Rivera Corp. The merger would double the company's market share if successful. Catherine was thrilled, seeing it as her chance to shine. Finally, an opportunity to show the board what real talent looks like. She bragged at dinner, throwing a pointed glance at me. "Unlike some people who can barely manage a filing cabinet." Eleanor nodded in agreement. "It's important to have ambition, dear. Not everyone is content with mediocrity." She looked right at me as she said it. Michael stared at his plate. What they didn't know was that I had orchestrated the entire merger through careful planning and hidden investments. I owned 40% of Rivera Corp., soon to be 40% of the newly merged Preston Rivera Financial Group. Catherine was determined to make the company gala her moment. She insisted on hosting it at her country club and made sure I knew how expensive the membership was. "But don't worry," she added with a fake smile, "staff gets a discount." The night of the gala arrived. I wore a simple black dress, elegant and expensive, but not flashy. Catherine floated around the room in a silk designer gown, introducing Michael to women she thought were more suitable. "Oh, Emma," she called loudly as I stood near the appetizers. "The catering staff needs help in the kitchen. I told them you feel right at home there. Her circle of followers burst into laughter. Across the room, Michael pretended not to notice, engrossed in conversation. Then Mr. Harrison, the CEO of Rivera Corp., walked in. He spotted me immediately. Mrs. Jean, he called warmly. The woman of the hour. Catherine frowned. Excuse me? Mr. Harrison continued, addressing the entire room. Everyone, I'd like to introduce our new Chief Financial Officer and major shareholder, Emma Jean. Without her vision for this merger, none of us would be here tonight. The room fell silent. Catherine's champagne glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. That's impossible, she stammered. She's a secretary. Oh, I did work as a secretary, I replied calmly. It's the best way to understand a company from the ground up. But I've also been one of the largest shareholders in both Preston Financial and Rivera Corp for the past 3 years. Eleanor's face turned bright red. But, the country club membership, she spluttered. I've been a member for 5 years, I said with a small smile. Actually, I'm on the board. Interesting that we've never run into each other. Michael pushed through the crowd, his face a mix of shock and guilt. Emma, he started. Why didn't you tell me? I met his gaze steadily. Would it have changed anything? Would you have stood up for me? Before he could answer, Catherine found her voice. This is ridiculous. I've worked here for 8 years. I earned my position. About that, Mr. Harrison interjected. Mrs. Jean has brought some concerning documents to our attention. Something about unauthorized trades under client accounts. Catherine's face went pale. We'll discuss this in detail on Monday, he said firmly. For now, I suggest you enjoy what might be your last company event. The rest of the evening was a blur of shocked faces and rushed congratulations. Eleanor and Catherine left early, claiming headaches. Michael kept trying to catch my eye. But I was busy handling actual business discussions. Back at home, the silence was unbearable. All this time, Michael finally said, "You let them treat you like that?" Why? Because I needed to see who people really were, I replied. Money changes how people act. I wanted to know if I could count on you to stand by me no matter what. And did I pass that test? He asked quietly. I looked at him for a long moment. What do you think? The next morning, I arrived at my new office early. The weekend security guard did a double take at my upgraded access badge. No longer was I entering as a visiting secretary. My phone had been buzzing nonstop with missed calls and texts from Eleanor, Catherine, and Michael. Michael's messages stood out. Please come home. We need to talk. I know I messed up. Give me a chance to explain. Emma, I love you. Don't throw away our marriage over this. But I had work to do. The audit team was already in the conference room, armed with the evidence I had been gathering for months. Mrs. Jean, Mr. Harrison greeted me. Shall we begin? The case against Catherine was overwhelming. She had been running a scheme, making unauthorized trades with client funds, skimming profits, and manipulating records to cover her tracks. Over 3 years, she had stolen more than $5 million, targeting dormant accounts belonging mostly to elderly investors who rarely checked their statements. One account stood out, Michael's grandmother. She had lost nearly $200,000, her own retirement fund. The realization made my stomach turn. As we reviewed the evidence, my assistant interrupted. Mrs. Jean, your mother-in-law is in the lobby. She's causing a scene. Send her up, I sighed. Eleanor stormed into the conference room, her designer handbag swinging. How dare you, you manipulative, scheming. Mrs. Kennedy, Mr. Harrison cut her off sharply. This is a private meeting. Private? Nothing is private anymore, thanks to this gold digger. Eleanor snapped. Do you know what she's done to our family? I met her furious gaze calmly. Do you know what your daughter has done to your mother-in-law's retirement fund? Eleanor froze. What? I slid the account statement across the table. Her face turned pale as she read the numbers. This must be a mistake, she whispered. No mistake, I said. Catherine stole from her own grandmother, along with dozens of other retirees. Eleanor sank into a chair, her anger replaced by shock. But she said she was doing so well at work. She was committing fraud, I said bluntly. The police will be here within the hour. I suggest you get Catherine a good lawyer. As if on cue, Catherine stormed into the room, with Michael right behind her. You can't do this, Catherine screamed. I've worked so hard. Save it for the police, Mr. Harrison interrupted coldly. They're very interested in your creative accounting. Michael stepped forward. Emma, please. There has to be another way. She's my sister. I looked at him, really looked at him. And I'm your wife. Or did you forget that every time she humiliated me? I didn't know about any of this, he said, gesturing helplessly at the evidence. You didn't want to know, I corrected. Just like you didn't want to see how they treated me. It was easier to stay quiet, wasn't it? Catherine's face shifted, her expression turning calculating. I have dirt on other people too, Catherine said as she glared at me. If I go down. Save your threats, I interrupted firmly. Every trade, every transfer, every document has been traced. Your dirt won't save you from prison. Eleanor began to cry. Think of our family name. Like you thought of your mother's retirement? I asked quietly. She trusted you with her account, Catherine. They all did. Minutes later, the police arrived. As they led Catherine away in handcuffs, she turned to Michael one last time. Are you really going to let her destroy our family? Michael stood frozen, torn between loyalty to his sister and doing what was right. In that moment, I made my decision. Send the divorce papers to my lawyer, I said quietly. I'll have my things out by tonight. Emma, wait, Michael said, catching my arm. I know I failed you, but please, give me a chance to make it right. I gently pulled his hand away. You had 3 years of chances. Every time they belittled me, every time they treated me like I didn't matter. Those were chances to stand up for your wife. You chose your side long ago. The aftermath came swiftly. Catherine pleaded guilty to fraud and theft, receiving an 8-year prison sentence and being ordered to repay millions in stolen funds. Eleanor and Michael's father sold their country club membership and downsized their home to help pay Catherine's legal fees. I focused on transforming Preston Rivera Financial. We strengthened oversight, updated technology, and created a restitution fund for Catherine's victims. Michael's grandmother was the first to receive full compensation. Months passed. I granted Michael an amicable divorce, even letting him keep the apartment. Some said I was too generous, but I remembered the kind man who had forgotten his wallet on a rainy day. He wasn't a bad person, just a weak one. One evening, as I worked late, my assistant announced an unexpected visitor, Michael's grandmother. She entered slowly, leaning on her cane, the engagement ring I once wore now back on her finger. I owe you a visit, she said, settling into a chair. To thank you for protecting my retirement and to apologize. You have nothing to apologize for, I replied. Oh, but I do, she insisted, pulling a small box from her purse. Inside was the engagement ring. I want you to keep this. I couldn't possibly. You protected not just my savings, but my dignity, she said with a warm smile. That's worth more than any ring. Besides, you were always more of a granddaughter to me than Catherine ever was. After she left, I stood at my office window, watching the city lights flicker on. The ring sat on my desk, not as a reminder of what I'd lost, but of what I'd gained: self-respect, clarity, and the knowledge that real strength lies in staying true to yourself. Eleanor still tries to contact me sometimes, usually when she needs money. Catherine writes from prison, alternating between threats and pleas for help with her appeal. I forward everything to my lawyers. Michael sent me one final email. I finally understand what real strength looks like. It's not about keeping the peace. It's about standing up for what's right. I'm sorry I learned that lesson too late. Take care of yourself, Emma. I kept the ring, not for its material value, but as a symbol of integrity and resilience. Last week, I approved a financial literacy program for seniors, offering free workshops to help them protect their investments. We named it after Michael's grandmother. It felt right to turn past pain into future protection. As the morning sun streams through my office window, I review the latest merger proposals. My father's words echo in my mind. Money talks, but wealth whispers. He was right, but he left out one important thing: integrity roars. And that's a sound no walls of privilege can ever silence.